Welcome to the Christmas 2020 card bank. Basically, by the time you watch this video and the 4 others that are participating, you will have enough Christmas card techniques, designs, what mediums to use. You'll have everything you need to create Christmas cards for the rest of your life. Like, I'm not kidding. You'll be able to refer back to this card bank, this vault of Christmas card ideas forever. We're going to leave it up for you so you can always reference it whenever you need a little festive jolt for yourself. There's 5 of us participating, and I'm going to talk about that a lot in the video, but for now, let's dive right in. Pre-cut your cardstock at one time. So just get all your cardstock out, get all your paper out, cut, 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 cut. Go ahead and pre-score your cardstock all at one time too. So you'll have all your card bases ready to go. So when you're done with your card designs, you can easily just glue them, adhere them, whatever glue you're using, to your card bases because you're already gonna have them ready to go. Another tip is to stamp all your stuff at one time. One time, just stamp and go, stamp and go, stamp and go. And do the same thing with your sentiments, do the same thing with your die cutting, do every step all at one time. So stamping at one time, die cutting if you're die cutting at one time, stamping on sentiment strips, whatever. Just do it all at one time. And then you can just mass produce it. So much easier that way. Another great tip for creating mass production cards is create all your backgrounds at one time. So I've got a couple different pieces of cardstock here, and I'm just going to add some texture to these backgrounds. I'm doing this with some Nouveau Glacier paste. You can use anything you want. We're going to create a bunch of different backgrounds right here in this segment. So if you don't have this, don't worry, hang with me. I'm going to show you other easy ways to do it. But this is going to correlate with some of the designs that I'm going to put together towards the end of the video for you guys to choose from. So by the time you're done with this video, you'll have a bunch of different ideas as far as card designs and also different parts of designs that you might want to incorporate. So basically I'm showing you a bunch of different ideas, and then I'm going to show you assembled projects as well. You can also do some smooshing, some ink smooshing with some cardstock. So I just took some of my ink. I'm using the top or the board of the Misty, the door of the Misty, for my little work palette here, but you can use a piece of plastic, a plastic plate, plastic packaging, whatever. And I'm basically putting the ink down, I'm adding some water to it, and then I'm smushing my cardstock directly onto the background. And there, quickly, easily, you can create beautiful custom watercolored backgrounds for your cards. You can also use background stamps here. So I am using my Misty stamping tool. I used a Post-it note, double-sided Post-it note, or a full adhesive back Post-it note, excuse me, to keep that paper in place because this is a background stamp. And if I use the magnet, I'm going to be, it's going to be in the way of my stamp there. So I just used the Post-it note to keep the paper in place, inked up the stamp, closed the door, and then boom, I've got a beautiful background here. I added some water to the stamp and closed the door again, and that's going to give me a beautiful watercolored background. This is a stamp that takes up a good size of the card, so, and it's beautiful and detailed, and it's just enough to stand on its own. It really is. So again, for mass production, I do recommend using a stamping tool of some kind. I am using the Misty stamp tool. It's my absolute favorite. I've had it since it was created, and it's been a lifesaver for me. It helps me with placements. If I don't ink up my image perfectly, I can easily re-ink my stamp and stamp it again for perfect placement, but it's also a lifesaver for mass production. So here I am and just going in with 2 different colors of ink for this one background. So it kind of created a little shadow look, as you can see here. And that's just a great way to add some shading and dimension to your card with little to no effort. This is a piece of vellum. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to ink up the same stamp. And this is what I mean by mass producing, doing all your stamping at one time. Once you find a stamp or whatever it is that you want to work with, go ahead and do all your stamping at once. Just get it out of the way. So here I am inking up some vellum. Now, vellum is a beautiful paper, but I tell you, it's slippery as all get out. So you can heat emboss on vellum if you do it carefully. This is very thick vellum. This is not super, super duper thin. So it's a little bit more durable than your traditional vellum. I just sprinkled on some embossing powder in clear. And a tip is to keep that gun moving, the heat gun, at all times. Just keep it moving. Make sure it's hot and good to go, and just move it, move it, move it. And it's going to take you a little bit of time, more so than just your traditional heat embossing because of the vellum. You don't want to warp the paper, but you can do it and you get perfect results every time. So now that we've created a lot of different background ideas, let's turn some of them into some cards so you can get some card design ideas. This is a stamp that I just stamped, mass produced. I stamped the stamp all at one time. I stamped the sentiment all at one time. And now I'm just going in and adding some color. I'm using sprays. I'm using these color bursts. I'm using whatever I have to easily, quickly add color. And once it's dry, bada boom, you're done. These are all the backgrounds that I've created in this video here. Check it out. Right? So now we can take these and turn them into card designs, and you can pick one or two from the video here and just mass produce away. So this is the vellum. This particular stamp has a coordinating die, so I did go ahead and cut that out. So for mass production purposes, I would do all my stamping at one time, all my die cutting at one time, and call it a day, then I'm ready to just put everything together. Because this is vellum, you can see through. So I have all these different backgrounds that I stamped out to choose from. I ended up going with this. I probably should have gone with the candy cane stripe, but whatever. But I chose this. This is a background I just sprayed with some mists. Nothing fancy about it. But once you assemble it all together, it's cool, it's fun, easy to do, and easy to mass produce. So I'm using some glue. That is my favorite glue, by the way, of all time. And I'm adding little dots to the back of the vellum, and I'm placing the dots where the ink is so you can't see through it because vellum is transparent. If you add a bunch of glue or glue run or anything like that, you will see the glue through it. So I just chose to place the dots behind the ink, and bada boom, bada bang, we're done. This is a background that I stamped with some ink that reacts to water, so I simply sprayed a teeny tiny bit of water over that ink surface and let it dry. This is the same die cut. It also cuts apart the letters as well, so I'm going to assemble two cards. I'm going to get a twofer here. So this is another design that you can choose to work with. So I'm going to add some color to this particular background here. This was stamped with permanent black ink when I did all my stamping at one time. So here I am going in and adding some color. But again, if you choose one particular design, you want to do your mass production like I did at the beginning of the video all at one time. But since I'm trying to showcase a couple of different designs for you, that's why I'm kind of piecing it together. But you can pretty much see the steps that you would take, the mass production stamps, if you want to make a bunch of the same card. So now that I went ahead and die cut those letters, I am piecing in the red letters. I'm piecing them in like a puzzle, and I use that negative space just to keep my so I could put the letters exactly where they go. Then I took the die and die cut that panel out, and you'll see my little twofer in just a second. So here I am using the glue, and I am applying that to the pre-cut and scored card base we already have done, and here's a beautiful card, easy to mass produce. I'm taking the backgrounds that I already stamped at the beginning of the video, and I'm like, okay, what's going to go with what? Now I chose to put this on that peppermint stripe background. This is quite busy. I will say, quite busy. But I'm going to grab a black pen. I will trace all the letters, and I could have probably done a thicker pen, so I would have had a thicker outline. And I'm just drawing in the little R. What do you call those things? I know the top of an I is a tittle. I learned that from JD. But what do you call the little cutouts of the R and the A, those kinds of letters? I'm sure it has a techie term. I just don't happen to know what those are. But anyway, I've got a pen, I'm outlining it, and I'm adding a little black in the center of the flowers just to tie more black together. I could do a whole bunch more, but again, this is all about mass production, so I want to eliminate a whole bunch of extra steps. But by the time you're done, stamp your sentiment, and you've got yourself a twofer. A 2-for-1, baby. So look at all these cards that we made. These are all designs that you could choose to work with, easy to mass produce for your Christmas needs. Now check out this video. This is a link to the next person, part of the Christmas club here, JD. She's going to be focusing on personalizing your Christmas projects. So that would be a great tool for you. And I will see you again next time very, very soon.